Welcome to Garden Plants with Jim Putnam. Let's talk Pragense viburnum. Pragense viburnum is a hybrid cross between two other viburnums. This is a fantastic evergreen shrub that I think is really underused. Very fast growth rate. It can reach 10 to 12 feet in height, 10 to 12 feet in width. Has kind of an egg shape. You know, that's what I would call it in the landscape, kind of an upright oval shape, slightly narrower at the top. Really beautiful foliage on this plant. In the wintertime, here in zone 7, where I'm at, and in zone 8, the foliage will turn kind of a little bit of a purple hue to it. In the colder areas, the colder regions where this plant will grow, it can be deciduous and lose its leaves. Super fast growing though in the spring. Just a really great ornamental plant. Pragense has spring fragrant flowers in a cluster on the top of the plant. Really gets very covered in them as the plant matures. Early on, when I've had my experience with this plant is I'll get a few flowers in the first couple seasons. As time goes on, it just becomes more and more floriferous. These are hardy in zone 5 to 8. And like I said earlier in the video, in zone 5, this can be a deciduous plant depending on your winter. Down into zone 7, 8, it's very much evergreen and turns a really interesting kind of purplish hue in the wintertime. To keep the most compact habit, Prague or Pragense viburnum should go in the full sun or part shade. I've seen these in a little deeper shade than that, and they will be very loose formed. They'll grow just fine, but you'll see right through them. They're not going to have a dense growth habit. So where would you use a very fast growing evergreen shrub that you know, in the landscape obviously is a screening plant, a border plant, hedging plant, you know, some sort of windscreen that you're trying to create, or as a single specimen plant against a fence or something like that, where you can have other lower evergreen things in front of it. And this will just kind of disappear in the background in a border like that until it flowers in the spring, and then it's quite beautiful and quite fragrant, and then it'll just kind of disappear back into that area, you know, as the other things in your landscape wake up in the spring. Pragense will perform well in almost any soil type, really. You want to make sure it's well drained. Don't put it in an area where it's going to sit in water. But moist, well drained soil, even a very dry spot will be fine. Although when you plant it, you're going to have to water it for a little while longer to get it established. If you know it's an area that's competing with tree roots or something like that. But really, just a super easy shrub. Once you get it in the ground, you know, that first year you're responsible for watering it. The way I go about watering is I water everything extremely heavily, and then I let it dry out between waterings, keep the weeds away from it, keep it well mulched, and Pragense viburnum will just be a very easy plant for you. Fertilize in the late winter, early spring, just once. I just use an organic fertilizer at my house, but use whatever fertilizer you want to use, and just, you know, again, once a year. You want to push out lots of new growth in the spring, but you don't want to be fertilizing in the summer or late summer and pushing late season growth that could potentially be damaged going into the winter. But this is just a great low maintenance plant that you can put in the ground, grows quickly. It can cover a spot in your landscape where you're trying to screen a neighbor. It can even go on the foundation, which I didn't mention earlier, if you have a corner spot on a foundation, because it does have that nice kind of perfect oval shape without having to do a lot of pruning on it. Pruning can be done after spring flowering, but keep in mind, if you're pruning off where the flowers were, you won't have any of the berries in the winter. So what I would recommend with this plant is just to let it grow. Put it in a spot where you can really let it get large. Maybe every 3rd, 4th, 5th year, you can cut it really hard after it spring flowers, and then you don't have to do it again for 2 or 3 years after that. That way you can enjoy the flowers and the berries. But this is Prague Viburnum, guys.